Great. Our working group originally included more people who were very formative in discussions, but were unfortunately not able to come, but we maintained them here. So the way we're doing this particular presentation is I'm giving the first 10 minutes, and then I'll be switching with Eddie, and she's going to be giving the second 10 minutes. And you're going to see how that actually has worked out perfectly. I'm very excited about this talk because of some of the technology I'll be presenting. So with that, I'm going to go because I have 12 minutes of information in 10 minutes. So monitoring deforestation and degradation using multi-scalar data collection tools, challenges and opportunities across scales. So context, deforestation, we've been hearing about it. That's why we're here. Deforestation has been starting to go back up. So deforestation. This deforestation is distributed throughout the Amazon, in particular this arc of the Amazon, and results in fragmentation and degradation. So part of what's going on with the deforestation is the way that those patches are. It's going from 70% being in very large patches back in 2003. You could monitor this using like MODIS pixels, 250 meters, 500 meters, you can see that. But now we're getting large amounts of deforestation happening in very small patches. So that's a real challenge for remote sensing and for monitoring. 30% now occurring in those patches greater than 25 hectares. So that's a challenge. We also get degradation. This is a very big challenge to monitor from remote sensing. It's changes in even the ecological function of a forest that oftentimes you can't see based on the structure or from space. So how might you monitor that? So defaunation, another form of degradation of kind of the ecological network that's going on. And this is a great paper by Carlos Pettis. And so once you start removing the wildlife, then you can get things that are termed like silent forest or empty forest. And that completely can disrupt the ecological function, leading back potentially, say, to Brazil nuts inoculated when you hunt out sagutipacas and sea dispersers and things like that. There's a lot going on. Fortunately, there are a lot of opportunities. Recent papers are showing that the primary forests are taking up as much carbon as is being emitted. Here, almost 4 times the UK emissions for 2016 in the primary forests. So that's a lot of carbon still being taken up. This came out by Oliver Phillips in 2017, so that's good news. Slightly contradicted by one that just came out like 3 days ago, but I'm not going to get into that. That's science. And then also those secondary forests in areas that have yet to be undergoing reforestation have huge potential for uptaking carbon as well. So lots of opportunities focusing on carbon, but with carbon usually comes opportunities for biodiversity conservation or anything like that. But monitoring reforestation and changes in secondary growth has been a persistent challenge for remote sensing for a very long time. Very small changes per year over large areas can result in big carbon uptakes. All of this is in complex feedback loops between drought, what's going to happen in the future. Are we able to monitor the types of stresses that might be happening in the future, in particular, say, water type stresses, hydrologic cycling, maybe feedback into changes in whole ecosystem types, savannas. So there's a lot of challenges, but we have unbelievable new tools that are coming out right now, every day. And literally every week, new tools are coming out. I'm going to be talking about them. So we're thinking multi-scalar framework for monitoring deforestation and degradation and their drivers. And in this presentation, and in interest in general, there's a lot of interest on protected areas. So how might that work in a very broad sense? You have remote sensing plus field data. But a lot of field data can actually be remote sensing. Let's not neglect the fact that camera traps are also a form of remote sensing. Soundscapes, audio meters, great stuff coming from the Midshade from the University of Puerto Rico. All of this forms of remote sensing with very fast technological advances. Processing, and he's going to be getting into that cloud versus technicians in the field. How do you share that data? How do you have the people who are going to use it comprehend and then integrate it into action in the field? And then how does all of the lessons learned here get assimilated to dynamically refine this approach, including the new technological advancements and availabilities that we have every day to continue this cycle? So how does this work? So this is a great slide that Andy put up. And this is really focusing on, well, we already talked about deforestation changes. What we're talking about here is the changes in the technology to monitor it. Here we've got little hands. Very time intensive. Original remote sensing work coming out with people sitting down actually using markers and drawing on big images. That was like some classic articles first talking about fragmentation, deforestation. Tens of students sitting down for hundreds and hundreds of hours, getting more and more increasingly digital. Now we have digital versions on a computer, big advancements, GIS coming in. And now we start to get everything automated and in the cloud. Now terabytes of data sitting there and you can access it through web browsers. but it's there, and a lot of us, even experts in this field, still don't understand how to use it and what we can do with it. So that's a challenge. So multi-scalar. So we've got new satellites, medium and high resolution satellites, very small pixels, very rapid temporal updates. So I'm going to show you an example that blows my mind. I think it's going to blow your mind in 2 slides. So you link this with aircraft-borne technology, each one having advantages and limitations. Drones. So we actually have sitting out here, and we're going to be flying at lunch if you care to come out and see it, one of the most advanced ecological remote sensing drones in the planet, based on what I'm aware of. Hyperspectral, LiDAR, RGB, all fused co-aligned, sitting right out there. And integrating this with all sorts of field data, 360-degree sensors, audio, soundscapes, camera traps, interconnected networks, all being linked across these scales. So let's have a case study and bring up some of this technology. So let's zoom in here on the Xingu Indigenous Park, an example of thinking about what some of this new remote sensing. Let's focus right here. Google Earth. We all use Google Earth. What do we see here? This is going there yesterday. We see, well, it's a high-res imagery. That's great, but it's from 2013. We can see rapid selective logging here. This looks very green, right? This looks like good intact forest. If you were using Google Earth for your monitoring approach and you went here and said, what's going on? Well, now you're using 2013 imagery. This is the best available. There is no better in Google Earth. You're going to be like, this is the state. Oh, that looks pretty good. Let's go to Global Forest Watch. Now we're using Hansen, using automated Landsat. All sorts of problems with this approach, but still, one of the best that's available, GIS, web interface. Let's zoom in here. So what do we see here? Now we're looking at 2016 data. It's white. So this still looks pretty good, right? That's pretty intact forest based on what we saw in Google Earth. It looks about the same, right? 2016. We got some increasing deforestation up there. You can see that this in 2013 starts to actually here, yeah. Okay. So it looks intact. But is that the story of what's happening now? Is that the time scale that we need to actually implement action? I don't think so. Because now Planet microsatellites, they have a goal to image the whole planet daily. Came out in February 2017. Imagine that. That just sounds like talk that makes no sense, and they're just trying to get propaganda. So what's the deal? So Angelica and I have been working with Planet for almost 8 years now. Some of the first academic people to partner with them. So we have access. I think other people can get access too. I'm not sure about that, but let's highlight Xingu. What do we have? Every single month we have a cloud-free mosaic. That's incredible. Cloud-free imagery over the Amazon is incredibly hard to get. They stack up to daily imagery and remove all the clouds, and then they have it. Then you can just simply pick 2 months, and you slide it back and forth, and now we zoom into our case area. And you can see right here, August 2016, it was forest. August 2017, not forest. So we know that that area that looked good in Google Earth and that looked good in the Hansen was forest until sometime after August 2016. But we need more data because we're going to be implementing people on the field to go out and do action. So let's zoom in to this one spot. And now we can see that we have daily imagery. September 3rd, 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 18th of this one spot. So the goal of planetary daily imaging is coming on board, and every month they launch new satellites. And that's why the coverage here gets better and better. It's incredible. That blows my mind. This is 3-meter data. This is the size of this little square here over the planet, over the tropics. So can we figure out exactly the date? Yeah. So we zoom in. My birthday, May 26th. It's still forest, but as of September 18th, it's not. All right. The constellation is still coming on board. We know it's sometime in those 30, 40 days that deforestation happened. And that's what it looks like. So what's going on there? You can see also signs of other roads coming in. Very ominous. Right here is the border of the protected area. So there's a lot going on. Roads, this is clearly going to be deforested soon. With this new technology, we will know the minute the trees are starting, or the day or the week the trees are starting to be taken down in that global right there. So, aircraft systems. All right. Aircraft systems, very expensive, huge, complex sensors. And but then there's also drones flying similar systems as you might find in an aircraft. But typically, RGB systems like you get here, you can now collect a lot of this data from the new Planet Lab satellite. These are great systems if you don't have access to that type of data. But it used to be, I need data from yesterday over a large area. Let's use a drone. Now you can use a satellite. So how can a drone fit in? You really need a drone that can bring up more data than what you can get from satellites. And that's more than just the top. You want structure. You want LiDAR data. You want LiDAR hyperspectral data. So out here, we're flying a system of about $180,000 versus $12 million to collect similar systems over an aircraft-borne system. You get LiDAR point clouds. So that's what we get here, and that's what we're going to get at lunch over this entire area, giving you the opportunities to collect above-ground forest biomass, forest height, things you can't get from a standard RGB drone or a remote sensing satellite. And the hyperspectral data, collecting a gigabyte per minute, allows us to look at diversity and water stress.
Evan, if you're looking to share in half, you have about 30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds. So what do you do with this volume of data? Even with the drones, it's a gigabyte per minute. You need to be thinking about online citizen science approaches. So there's global land cover change analyses, even camera trap analyses through citizen science. This is where we switch.
So, as we're switching, I'll remind you that you have pink Post-it notes to ask questions, to engage inquiry, and you have these 3 questions to guide you for all the speakers.
Just to track, it's the same presentation.
Oh, it's the same presentation?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Right where.
Ah, oh, I'm so sorry.
This is good. Timers. Pause the timer.
I'll give you some dispensation.
Okay, so I can breathe. Yeah, so just to summarize a little bit the first part of our group
Yeah,
talk.
that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Here. Here, go. You need
Yes.
to make a big step on that one right there.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to summarize, basically, we are in a new era. We have several multiple sensors available. If you look at here, you see all of those are satellites, not all of those are collecting images, but we have a lot of, things on our heads. We do need infrastructure to store and process all this data, and we do have some pretty good ones. And now we have an explosion of web tools. Everybody wants to use web. What do you do with all of that? Well, there are bad things related to it. Not bad things, but challenges. We need to find reasonable way to make use of all these things, data, tools, apps. But then we are really, really, really well positioned to integrate scales now, better than ever. So I'm just going to give you some samples of things, how to use this data and how we relate to this work with remote sensing work with public policy. This is just one example I gave yesterday. I'm not going very deep on it, but this is how we use temporal time series to generate scenarios, deforestation modeling, and how we can use this in the case of Jamanchine National Forest case, which was about to be changed. We can actually put in a paper and hand it to the President of Brazil, Mr. Fortin. And we also can get all this information that Evan presented and put in different types of tools. I'm just listing some of the tools that we have developed in the past years, but I'm going to show one of them. It's a carbon calculator that we have been working very closely with some states in the Amazon, and actually has been a very important tool mainly for Acre to use in their system. And then they can calculate very easily how carbon has been lost. They can use to monitor their projects with the Amazon Fund and things like that. You can get online and see how it looks like. We also are using all this type of data and technology to put together all scientific data on climate change and how this affects indigenous territories. And we are connecting this with apps that can help the indigenous leaders and managers to actually monitor how fire, kind of a fire alert system. And this has actually been connected with FUNAI, which is a national agency in Brazil, and IBAMA Pé de Fogo, so they can actually get this alert. We are now working to implement the app as an official way to monitor fire in some of the indigenous territories. And this, for me, is a revolution. It's an initiative called Map Biomas. It's a multi-collaborative initiative with several institutions involved. And this is the new frontier of remote sensing for me, because not only that we can access data, like tons of data on the cloud, on the web, but we can work collaboratively on the web. So forget like download the image, calibrate the image, and do all of that. You don't need to do that. If you have a Gmail account, Marianne, you can like create your own map without knowing not a lot about remote sensing. So this is a revolution, actually. Map Biomas, the main objective or purpose of Map Biomas is to generate is to create land use maps of the entire Brazil, which we don't have it yet. We have for some periods for the national inventory that was created by NIPI, but we don't have such a thing. Just to go very quickly over Map Biomas, we are in the collection 2, so we just we launched on April annual maps of land use, land cover for the entire Brazil from 2000 to 2016. The way we work, a set of institutions are responsible for each one of the biomes in Brazil. IPAM is responsible for the mapping of Cerrado. So we work on Landsat images. We download this image. We run like empirical and statistical decision trees. We create covers. We do filters. And then we integrate all different types of biomes and land uses to create the final map. And then to create the transition maps, which we use to feed SEG, which is like an inventory, greenhouse gas emissions inventory systems that the civil society has put together. So why I think Map Biomas is the new frontier is not only because, it's an example that if you have a lot of data available, you can really, really, really take out a lot of things from it. So having available live satellite images database that is already calibrated in co-register, having available programming scripts and tools to process all this database. So if you, Tom, wants to actually do your map as well, I'm just trying to motivate people to use it. You can get the script and have a Gmail account, and you can run Map Biomas for your area and calibrate the way you want. It's available for everything in our site, so you can download and go in mapbiomas.org. And this is just an example that Genius Band is an indigenous researcher from Raposa Serra do Sol. He went to IPAM. We were doing that training on the ACI, which is the climate alert app with him, and we are talking about, I want to know more about water in this indigenous territory. And I say, and about deforestation. And you know what? In Raposa Serra do Sol, which is in Roraima, just like near Venezuela, there's no monitoring because INPE does monitor officially the Amazon, but doesn't monitor the cerrado, not the cerrado, the lavrado of the Amazon. So there is no record of temporal monitoring of this area. So I told him, why don't you come to IPAM for a week? And then we train you to actually do your own map. And this is the map that I got from email from him. Like he mapped like the last 3 years of the Raposa Serra do Sol. So I think that I cried. Actually, it was very amazing how like he did. And just to finish, and I'm focusing here a lot on the availability of data technology 2 minutes, and actually collaborative work. And I want to focus that, and I want to see collaborative work in all of these sheets. We talking about collaborative work. We are putting together with help with from support from Moore Foundation, which actually motivated that a lot. A portal which we call the Netflix of the protected Amazon protected areas, which will have data analysis tools, news, histories, movies, whatever at our fingertips. And you say, oh, but this could be just simple a portal, isn't it? Yeah, but what is behind is the series, like Narcos, or I don't know, where you can actually bring together information from UF, from WCS, from EPAM, from, you know, and you can put together a series. For example, I want to do a series of mining in Peru. Who has information about mining in Peru? And then maybe 3 or 4 institutions. Well, why don't you come together and do actually and share data? And this data doesn't need to come to our server, it can come straight away from different servers. And then we can put together. So this requires a lot of working in terms of collaborative management for like creating a series. And also behind this, back-end working. So this is the innovation for me behind this type of hub. We need a name for the portal. We can't call Netflix, you know. So if you have suggestions, please, I mean, and this is how the way we intend that to have some series. We already did a workshop. It's finished. Okay. This I think is my last one. We did a workshop with several institutions where we actually have already some series that we will work on it. So with that, I finished. I was going to mention the risks and challenges of this type of collaborative work and things like that. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.